fascinating report about your tax dollars going into the pocket of a man who claims to have unique insight on terrorism because he used to be a terrorist. Walid Shubat is his name. He claims to have bombed an Israeli bank, been a member of the PLO who attacked Israeli soldiers, and grew up a devout Muslim who hated Jews. Now converted to Christianity, he travels America lecturing churches and police about the dangers of Islam, and he gets paid for it. His books have titles like God's War on Terror, Satan's Footsteps, and Why I Left Jihad. They were big sellers where we found Shubat speaking at the South Dakota Conference on Homeland Security. He was there addressing more than 300 police officers and first responders. His message was American Muslims need to be profiled. All Islamic organizations, from doctors to engineers to students, ought to be investigated, and mosques in the U.S. should be considered terror centers, not houses of worship. He says terrorism and Islam are inseparable.
You want them to say that Islam was hijacked. It was not hijacked. Islam is Islam.
Full disclosure, one time or another, CNN and other networks have turned to Shubat for his perspective on the war on terror. American book comes to the side. Keep it honest tonight, we're discovering that Walid Shubat's story just doesn't seem to add up. Here's CNN's Drew Griffin, CNN's Special Investigation.
يعرض war against Islamism, which stems from Islam. And I know historically denied Islamism basically invaded Christianity.
Walid Shubat's message is the epitome of good versus evil. He has an advertised pedigree that makes him an expert. Islamic terrorist turned ultra-conservative Christian. U.S. citizen because his mother is American. He is a darling on the terror circuit, the church and university circuits, and yes, he believes the war on terror is a holy war. Portrays himself as a man converted and on a mission. Once a Jew-hating, bomb-throwing terrorist, now a devout Christian convert warning the world Islam is out to destroy them.
Inside out. English, and if you meet the unbeliever, then smite off their necks. But what about to smite off their necks? We Americans don't understand.
His message before a largely positive crowd of cops and emergency responders at this South Dakota Homeland Security Conference: trust no Muslim, especially those who organize.
Know your enemy. Know your enemy. All Islamist organizations in America should be the #1 enemy. All of them. Islamist organizations. Islamic Society of North America should be focused on. Got that camera.
He is being paid $5,000 plus expenses to speak here with your tax dollars. He was also given a Rapid City Police guard during his time in the city. A nice day's work, judging by his website, where he highlights more than 36 speaking engagements. Shubat gets a lot of work. Being a terrorism expert has become a cottage industry since 9/11. The Department of Homeland Security has spent nearly $40 million on counterterrorism training just since 2006. DHS doesn't keep records on how much is spent just on speakers. But some of the so-called experts who go around the country teaching, and in some cases preaching, about terrorism and the dangers of Islam are not quite what they seem. People, it turns out, like Walid Shubat.
First of all, I have to get what's the purpose of the office to these cops, emergency responders for South Dakota? Well, being an ex-terrorist myself is to understand the mindset of the terrorist, number one.
An ex-terrorist. It's Walid Shubat's claim to fame. A terrorist, a PLO member, who bombed a branch of an Israeli bank in Bethlehem Square, throwing a firebomb on the bank's roof. The problem with the story, with a lot of Shubat's stories, there's no evidence for them. And despite CNN's many requests, neither Shubat nor his business partner have provided us with any.
Bombings in Bethlehem Square specifically said the bank wasn't a
CNN's Jerusalem Bureau went to great lengths trying to verify Shubat's story. finding the general location where the branch of Bank Leumi once stood, but not finding anyone who could remember a bombing. We contacted the bank headquarters in Tel Aviv, asking officials to search records. No records found. Israeli police found no record anyone ever threw a bomb at the branch of the bank.
Why would the bank not have a record? Why would the Israeli police not have a record? What did the Israeli police have a record? I don't know. I don't know where to check the dates.
There's another part of his story that doesn't check out. Shubat says he was arrested and spent 2 weeks in an Israeli prison.
There's no record of immunity. I think there'd be at least an arrest record. They held you for 2 weeks. Would the United States know you were in prison if you're a U.S. citizen?
How about being you both? You're going to be a prisoner. That's correct, Doug?
We did. And the Israeli detention center could find no record of detaining anyone with the name Walid Shubat.
I mean, you obviously can see why people are critical of your claims. There's a whole lot of gaps in your story.
There's no gaps at all.
We don't have a bank bomb.
And we don't have a terrorist, because it turns out Walid Shubat, even on his own admission, was never charged.
I was in prison for 2 weeks.
Was there a charge?
No, I was a U.S. citizen, remember? I was born by an American mother. The other conspirators in the act ended up in jail. I ended up being released.
There's another problem: his family. In the neighborhood where Walid Shubat grew up, relatives say he was just a regular kid. And Daoud Shubat, who says he is Walid's fourth cousin, goes even further.
There were only 2 banks in Bethlehem district, and they are Bank Leumi and Discount Bank. They were on Nativity Square, and Walid never had any connection with those 2 banks, not a close or a distant connection. I tell you, this is out of experience. I am one of the people who are considered a responsible man in the area of Bethlehem or Beth Zahul. I've never heard anything about Walid being a mujahid or a terrorist. He claims this for his own personal reasons.
He's saying he claimed this for his own personal reasons. What personal reasons?
Well, there's a big personal reason here. It's called money. You know, Anderson, and I'll tell you, classic investigative reporting, you follow the money. Like his background, how Walid Shubat is now making that money is about as mysterious as his past.
The Walid Shubat Foundation, is that a charity? Walid Shubat Foundation is called.
Basically, we're in and we also helping Christians that are being persecuted in countries like Pakistan. And helping Christians more tougher, all projects.
It's clear Walid Shubat does not like tough questions. He became even more defensive when we began asking about his foundation, his tax-exempt status, and all the money he is making. He has turned what some might call hate speech into a career, trading on his past to advise law enforcement officials and religious groups about the threat of Islamic radicals. He says he was a Palestinian terrorist, jailed by the Israelis, but it's a life story based on very little evidence. But it sure pays well. Tax records filed by his business partner reveal his speaking engagements earned more than $560,000 in 2009.
So where's the brand skepticism? If somebody collects $500,000, then it goes to my pocket. It's absolutely untrue.
Like his answers, his tax return is vague on specifics, and his various businesses and foundations, well, that's vague too.
How much do you get paid for this?
Not that much. Actually, if you look at my salary, I make like probably what a gas station makes for a garage. Everybody thinks I'm just making the dough, which is absolutely incorrect.
The business, in fact, Shubat leaves up to his manager, Keith Davies, who was down the hall selling Shubat's anti-Islam books. When CNN had specific questions about the business, like perhaps the names of the high-ranking generals and experts he said are on his board of advisors, well, Shubat said, get the names from Davies.
Walid said that you would be able to tell us about your advisory board. You guys have said you have generals and other high-ranking officials.
Correct.
Can you tell us who they are?
Off the top of my head, yes. Let me see. I'm trying to think. The name's gone blank. They'll come back to me in a second. A Major General three-star general of the Air Force, Irish name, Thomas. I usually know these off by heart.
Davies did come up with one name, a pilot, but no contact details, despite repeated requests from CNN. We made calls to the individual anyway, but he never called us back. The group's public tax forms lists only Davies and a real estate developer as board members, both with the same address. Schubert and Davies run several foundations and 3 websites that are all linked. A confusing model, considering the group's tax returns for the past 4 years contain very little information. In fact, while Schubert has a foundation bearing his name, no tax forms could be found on public sites. Davies said they are merged together.
The other question, Wally, you said up there about the right time. Well, you don't ask anybody else here about money. Well, you talk about this foundation, trying to find out where this money goes in terms of charity. What is it? Well, most of the money is used to help persecuted Christians in the Middle East. That the media doesn't want to talk about. I'll talk about it if you can give me any information about.
Yeah, we have a website that you can have all the information about what we do on our website. It's rescuechristians.org.
I read that. It's very unspecific as to what exactly is going on, where the money is going. I gotta ask you, because I do a lot of this type of reporting on charities, organizations that collect money for various funds. Everything is not very transparent. Is this... Are you running a scam here?
Oh, absolutely. A big scam. I'm not answering more, but you're trying to scam us all the time. We are a very legitimate organization. We've been around for 8 years. Well, we 6 or 7 years, 4 for Middle Eastern Sound calls with the IRS. And you can have a look at the form that even sent a copy of the tax returns if you want.
He never did, but we found some on other websites. The money is coming from universities and churches and from your tax dollars. Some of his appearances are paid out of Homeland Security grants. DHS in South Dakota told us Schubert was paid $5,000 plus expenses to speak at this event, and he was given security. Schubert told us,
You know, there's no expenses to pay. The hotel I paid myself. The hotel I paid today myself.
The bigger question may be why Waleed Shoebat is in South Dakota teaching a bunch of cops about Islamic terrorists, a state that has so few Muslims. The local newspaper here in Rapid City says only a couple of dozen live here year-round.
Jim Carpenter is South Dakota's Homeland Security Director.
What was the point of bringing him here?
I think he brings a point of view that certainly is not necessarily mainstream. It's not a South Dakota-based point of view. He brings in commentary about living and being raised as a Muslim and then converting over to Christianity.
So why would someone's religious conversion be important to a Homeland Security conference in Rapid City, South Dakota?
You know, I really couldn't figure that out. Based on further questions, I really didn't get a good answer from Jim Carpenter with the South Dakota Department of Homeland Security. The Federal Department of Homeland Security, Anderson, we went to, trying to find out if they do any vetting of speakers, if they had any idea about Shoebat. If anyone in the federal government did what we have done, try to check out all the claims. Well, what we got from Homeland Security was a statement that said if states use DHS grants for speakers, it's up to the states to vet them. We also got this: if training programs do not meet these standards, DHS standards, corrective action will be taken. We have not and will not tolerate training programs, says the DHS, or any DHS-supported program that rely on racial or ethnic profiling. Anderson, based on the 3 sessions we sat in on with Waleed Shoebat and our interview with him, we can tell you he does get profiling, flatly being suspicious of anybody.
And his reaction to you kind of turned ugly.
Yeah, it sure did. Not just him, but South Dakota's Homeland Security people. They actually tried to keep us out of the conference. We got in only after they had to call the governor's office. As for Shoebat, he did get tested later sessions. After that interview, he began attacking the media, specifically CNN, for doubting his story. He has since accused us, and you, Anderson, being used by the Council on American Islamic Relations, even suggesting that group was the primary source for our reporting. Of course, it's not true.
And it's interesting. I mean, if somebody's running a legitimate foundation that's tax-exempt and stuff, I mean, usually they're very willing to be transparent and willing to give documents and stuff. It sounds like those guys were saying, oh yeah, we'll send me these documents, and then nothing shows up.
No, and it's all wrapped in this secrecy and security. They're under the impression we're asking for the names of Christian families in the Middle East that are being persecuted. We're not. We're just trying to figure out where is the money going, because we cannot find out where this money is.
Well, it's also interesting in your piece, because Shubat said, oh, well, this foundation is part of this other thing, and it pays for speaking and teaching, which basically is what he does, and also helping Christians. The other guy said it mainly goes to helping Christians, and yet again, no details.
And I think you can see from the reporting, we couldn't get a straight answer about anything from just about anybody. That reporting continued in our various emails and contacts with these fellas after that. It was just a very confusing, and in the past when we've done reporting like this, the more confusing, the less transparent things are, the more questions need to be asked, I think, by DHS and other federal authorities.
Yeah, interesting that they haven't been. Drew, appreciate the reporting. Great job as always. Thanks.